We're talking about a couple of Zs. Yeah, that's exactly it, man. Zs. Getting into it here, let's go over to some Montreal Canadiens trade talks, because I do think that some of these ideas are intriguing enough to dive into, especially since some of them are pretty familiar to us at this point. So firstly, there was an update by Marco D'Amico that was posted somewhere. I think this was on rg.org, not really too sure, but it was published and repeated on Instagram the other day by Puck Empire. Pretty sure most of y'all are familiar with this page. They go out there and pretty much spell out a bunch of rumors. The Ducks continue to make Trevor Zegras available, but they are asking for a high price. And my gosh, look at the colorway on that jersey. So beautiful. Anyways, Zegras being labeled as still on the market and still one of these guys that is getting some attention, with some teams going out there and looking for center help. Let's just say the Montreal Canadiens might be in that. It's why we're making this entire video anyway. Could they be in the market for a guy like Z still? Cole Caulfield needs some help, man. He can't be getting all those goals by himself. He might need a wizard like Z to be setting him up like they did in the old NTDP days in 2018-19. But Trevor Zegras still is an interesting name that I think a lot of Canadiens fans at this point have sort of formed their opinions on already. Like, I get it, you know, we're making another video about it, but I don't think many Habs fans are still on the fence. They're either fully yes or fully no. I don't think there's really much room for nuance after this guy's been linked to Montreal for so long. It kind of reminds me of Pierre-Luc Dubois, in a way. But if Zegras is indeed available on the market and he is still getting talked about in trade rumors, even if the Ducks have that price still sky high, a part of me doesn't really buy it. I don't think that this team is going to be able to get the price that they want for this player, mostly because I would assume if a team is willing to offer Anaheim what Anaheim wants, there probably would have already been a trade at this point. I don't think teams are going out there and really banging on the table saying, yeah, we really need to get this guy, we need to get Zegras, so let's just give Anaheim what they want. I think Zegras' reputation amongst the NHL community hasn't really been as strong as it was back when he was dangling around people at the All-Star game and being the cover athlete of the video game and all that. I think he's kind of fallen a little bit in terms of his value, so if Montreal can just stand tall, not give in to what the Anaheim Ducks and Pat Verbeek want for this guy, and not really mortgage their future in any sort of a deal too, then I don't know, maybe Zegras could still be in there. Apparently there was an offer in place to get this guy back in the summer, but it just didn't go through. So now, even though the price still seems to be high, I don't really believe it's going to stay that high, which might be added to Kent Hughes and his benefit. Anyways, I wanted to leave that into the video just because Zegras always seems to be a hot topic for Canadiens fans to talk about, but what I also wanted to turn your attention to was yet another Z. Take a look at this article published on HabsFanatics.com by Elias Edyem. Mika Zibanejad offered to the Canadiens in a trade. Hughes may be eyeing a massive Sean Monahan-style deal. Now, I'm going to be honest here, this article doesn't use any prime insider information or commentary from guys like Friedman or Merrick or, yeah, by the way, Merrick's back. Anybody see that? That's so great. Friedman or Drager or Saravelli, none of those guys went out there and spoke about it. I'm just using an idea brought up in this individual article. According to The Athletic, Mika Zibanejad's contract with the Rangers is currently almost impossible to trade for the Rangers. This means it would be considered an undesirable contract, holding little to no trade value on the market. Given that acquiring Mika Zibanejad was one of the best moves in Jeff Gorton's career when he was a GM of the Rangers, could it be an interesting option for Montreal? We're talking about a player who could take on the same role that Sean Monahan had with the Habs. Now, this is a crazy idea because Mika Zibanejad is making a pretty, I don't want to say it's like terrible, but I mean, when he is at his best, you can say that he's worth it. I mean, he had that 5-goal game a few years ago, right? I think a lot of people are going to latch on to that as an immediate trophy for the career of Mika Zibanejad in New York, but his contract sees him making $8.5 million a year till 2030. He's 31 years old right now, so by the time that contract expires, he'll be 37? Huh. I don't know, that's not that good. But still, Mika Zibanejad's career with the Rangers has been highlighted by 91 and 81-point seasons in 2023 and 2022. He dipped to 72 points in 81 games last year, and this year he is on pace for about 69 total points, which would be a very nice amount of points. He had had 40 goals with the Rangers even further back than that, in a sample size of only 57 games, which is incredible when you really do the math there. 75 divvy 57 multiplied out by 82, that was a 107-point pace, and the goal pace he was on in that season was around 59. Crazy. Now this year, he's only on pace for 14 goals, so he certainly has fallen off in terms of that goal-scoring capacity, and with a lot of Rangers fans always getting on Zibanejad's behind every time the guy doesn't do anything at even strength, anytime he just becomes a power play triggerman, anytime he misses the gosh darn net on the power play. It's like a lot of his value on the ice now is being that power play sniper, the one-time option that usually puts the puck in the back of the net, but doesn't really do much else otherwise. So when he's missing the net, and this Rangers team keeps on needing to restart and regroup in their own zone, then what kind of value are you bringing there, Zibanejad? Anyways, saying that his contract is undesirable does put a pretty interesting flavor into the conversation, because it makes it seem that this is a player that the Rangers might actually have to pay to give up. Now, you can question whether or not the Rangers would want to give up Mika Zibanejad. That's an entire other conversation. But if we assume the Rangers would be in a spot to maybe trade this guy because his contract is seen as undesirable, a nearly impossible contract to trade, this is where we talk about the Habs. If his contract is undesirable, it's worth taking advantage of. I don't understand why they say his contract is impossible to trade, but if the Rangers do see it as undesirable, then the Canadiens should at least inquire. It's $8.5 million a year till 2030. And so, with Mika Zibanejad, I feel like his status in the NHL is already maybe a little bit more established compared to some of the guys in the Montreal Canadiens system, particularly because he already had a 90-point season, he had the 5-goal game. Zibanejad has been on the radar for a few years now, especially ever since getting acquired by New York from the Ottawa Senators. It was seen as a pretty big move at the time. However, we have to remember that that was like almost 10 years ago, and Zibanejad now is a much different player. Just reputation-wise, I wouldn't say he's as beloved as he was back in the day. And I say back in the day like I'm not talking about like 3 years ago, but just seeing Rangers fans creeping around online, talking about Zibby and talking about him potentially not doing much, and whether or not this is a guy worth keeping around for the remainder of that contract, it does get me interested. If there is some sort of a dissatisfaction there, could Montreal expand and capitalize? I'd say Mika Zibanejad is maybe a little bit more of an offensively defined center than Nick Suzuki is, but Suzuki has a bit more of a defensive presence that Zibanejad doesn't have. I also do think that heading into the next few years, it'll really make or break Mika Zibanejad's reputation, whether or not he's able to fully uphold that dollar amount, because if he's not really contributing much outside of the power play, then what else is he doing? There's already a little bit of restlessness, I would say, amongst the Rangers fan base because of how good they've been, but how, let's just say, unsuccessful they've been at the same time. They've been making playoff runs, they've been having guys at the top of the scoring race, but then when that going gets tough, man, it's difficult to really put a handle on it. Everybody talks about Zibanejad and Kreider and Panarin and how some of these guys show up in the playoffs, some of these guys don't, and it's inconsistent year by year. So my question is, ultimately, for a guy like Mika Zibanejad, who, for example, was a point per game in the Rangers playoff run last season, he had 16 points in 16 games, but if you remember, towards the end of the playoffs, he only had 2 points in one game, and that's it. He didn't score any other points in the other games against Florida. That is what I'm talking about here. Inconsistency with the Rangers. Is there a desire to trade this guy? Is there a desire in any capacity to move on from him? And if so, could Montreal and Jeff Gorton be a suitable destination? If you're a Rangers fan, what is it that you would want from Montreal to get some sort of a Zibanejad trade to work? Obviously, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. Like, oh, it's Christian Dvorak for Zibanejad. No, it's going to be a bunch of stuff. Bunch of value, bunch of prospects, probably a few picks in there. Montreal doesn't want to mortgage the future, so it's going to be difficult to fully label it, but I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section either way. If you're a New York Rangers fan, what are your opinions about trading Zibanejad? If you're a Ducks fan, what are your thoughts on Zegras? If you're a Canadiens fan, what are your thoughts on both of these Zs? Zegras or Zibanejad, which one would you rather have? Which one do you think would be a better center for the Habs? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.